Remember Pokémon Go? Well, only about 4 out of 5 players seem to nowadays. Despite a significant drop in its user base, Pokémon Go remains today one of the biggest mobile game crazes of the decade. A year ago, when it was released, just about everyone seemed to be playing it or talking about it. I remember it got to the point when I asked a girl out not to go to the movies, but to go play Pokémon Go by hiking up a mountain. Needless to say, that one didn't last too long. But I do have a lot of neat memories of playing it with my pals, biking in cities to make Pokemon hunting faster and almost dying of heat exhaustion one time because I just couldn't stop. Or when I tried to cheat the egg system by building a long train track so I could tape my phone onto it so I didn't have to walk around. I think I can sum up my short experience with Pokemon Go with it was fun while it lasted. Now you might remember I put out 2 Pokemon Go videos on this channel, a short, terrible review and an editorial claiming the game would die sooner than later. Unfortunately, from the drastic decline in the player base, you could argue Pokemon Go did just that. But that's the case with almost every popular thing, right? What goes up must eventually come down if you keep doing the same thing over and over without a steady stream of new content. After a while, it'll get boring. It's an inevitability for games, movies, and even us when you think about it hard enough. Putting aside existentialism, today let's revisit the mostly dead worldwide phenomenon a year after its release onto mobile game markets. See, replaying this game again after so many months was kind of strange. I had forgotten my password and username, so I had to create a new profile, which kinda sucked because I remember having a fairly high level back in the day. Regardless, now when you start up Pokemon Go, you aren't met with server errors or some bland loading screens. And now this cool piece of artwork with Tyranitar displays, but you don't get to see him for too long. It seems Niantic really did go to work in fixing the long loading times and connection issues. I'm not sure when these went into effect, as in August of 2016, these improvements most certainly were not commonplace. It's better late than never, I suppose. There's also this new buddy system where for a certain distance, either 1 to 5 kilometers depending on the species of Pokemon, that particular Pokemon will pick up candies of its species. There's all different rates for each set of Pokemon, and unfortunately, the more rare that creature is, the less likely it will be to pick up candies for a certain amount of kilometers. As an example, the minimum distance you'll have to travel to get enough candies to evolve, say, a Charmander is 375 kilometers, which if you're following the maximum rate of speed of 10.5 kilometers per hour, it will take you roughly 35 hours of straight walking around playing Pokemon Go. Well, I guess at that point you wouldn't be walking, you'd probably be on a bike or something. I suppose if you play this game enough and are into it, you won't even notice the time is passing you by, but holy hell, that's a long wait time just to get a Charmeleon. This is one feature of the game I'm still not a big fan of. There's no way to boost your Pokemon's time to evolve other than catching more of that Pokemon or having it be your buddy for a long walking distance. Evolving rare Pokemon like Dratini, the starter Pokemon, and even Magikarp seems to take forever. It's a shame too because evolving and leveling up Pokemon is one of my favorite things to do in the main series installments. Filling up the Pokedex is always an enjoyable time simply because I like tracking my progress and seeing all the space in the decks fill up. There's no reward in doing this, but the experience alone is worth it. In Pokemon Go's case, it takes that idea and stretches it out. Sure, this design choice makes sense to hypothetically keep players engaged and continually opening up Pokemon Go whenever they're on the go. The slim chance of finding candies or finding rare Pokemon to contribute to evolving your rare Pokemon seems to be the incentive to coming back to this mobile game. I can understand that appeal, but it just doesn't do it for me. I thought catching Pokemon was still kind of fun though. I like the feeling of walking around aimlessly and then being excited whenever my phone would vibrate and a Pokemon would appear. Then trying to angle your phone and finger to catch the creature was just the small bit of gameplay I needed to feel like I contributed something to the endeavor. Sliding your finger in a certain way to either curve the Pokeball or make it go a certain distance is is responsive. And when you don't manage to throw your balls in the right way, it's more often than not the fault of your fingers, even if you want to desperately blame the game for wasting 3 Pokeballs and a goddamn stupid spinner. However, after 6 hours of my new playthrough, the cracks of the system began to show through. The limited Pokeball system makes sense, but I've come to despise it. I understand Niantic intentionally limits your Pokeball counter to a lower amount so you feel coaxed to spend some real-world currency to buy more balls of the Poke variety, or so you have to keep finding new Pokestops placed in various hotspots around the world to get balls for free. Either way, that means you're playing the game for longer, but obviously the second option is the riskier of the two, because what if a rare Pokemon appears and you don't have any balls to catch it? It's not like the Pokemon stick around for long due to the fact that if you move away from an area, so will they. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to run out of Pokemon, then to run to a Pokestop nearby, encounter a Charmeleon, and not be able to catch the damn thing purely because of this design choice. Again, I understand the business decision behind limiting Pokeballs, and you could argue this actually makes the game more interesting because you have to choose carefully what Pokemon are worth wasting your balls on, in case other, more uncommon Pokemon show up. That makes every Pokemon counter a risk versus reward situation, which is actually quite intelligent the more I think about it. It's just not ideal for an average schmuck like myself who doesn't want to worry about that and just wants to fucking evolve his Charmander into a Charizard without having to walk around for days on end. Catching Pokemon just gets frustrating after a while when you're in the same spot and no new Pokemon appear. As an example, I was walking around for an hour and I kept seeing Quillfish after Quillfish after Quillfish. At one point, 3 in a row appeared and I audibly went, "Fuck this," as a grandmother and her kids passed me by. That's another thing you might be wondering about. Yes, I went out and got a GoPro just to film myself for this review playing Pokemon Go IRL. I hope you like my legs and stomach because you've been seeing that a lot already. I cannot tell you how weird it is first to be wandering around with a GoPro attached to my chest playing a game about catching colorful invisible monsters, and second to be the only one playing Pokemon Go as people pass you by and make weird comments like, "Oh damn, is he really playing that thing?" I got so many weird looks and whispers from passerbys. I know there's people who still regularly play Pokemon Go, but I haven't actually seen anyone playing it in real life since last summer. Understandably so. I mean, after 6 hours, I got sick of doing the same thing over and over again by myself. Catching the same low-level Pokemon with just a few more uncommon Pokemon sprinkled here or there to keep my hopes up gets monotonous. If I ever see another Quillfish again, I swear I will lose my goddamn mind. The minigame of catching Pokemon began to get old again too. There's only so far the simplistic gameplay of tossing Pokeballs can go and still be entertaining after hours upon hours of play. I guess you could always argue just walking around and hatching eggs is enjoyable, and you know, it's not bad. I think my experience would have been better if I had a group of friends to play with, but nobody really was down to come with me and walk around playing Pokemon Go. That's really unfortunate because one of the best parts of Pokemon Go, at least for me, was always the interactive community experience. Telling pals how you caught certain Pokemon in certain places or evolved a certain Pokemon was pretty fun. It felt good to be part of something huge and widely popular, and have your own little quirks and strategies that you could discover and discuss. I'm always reminded of that video of hundreds of kids rushing around campuses when someone claimed a Blastoise was around back in the summer of 2016. Moments like these and also stories on the news made me excited to keep playing. With that community dying over the past year, it's little wonder the game slowly died with it. As more and more people went, more and more people followed, as is the case with anything. Nobody wants to be that one guy or gal still playing something like Pokemon Go, I suppose. Unfortunately, this all could have maybe been prevented if Niantic had maybe sped up update production and release. See, just a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was months, I don't know, Niantic released the Johto update adding all the Gen 2 Pokemon to the game, which was great. The update saw a sudden rise in player activity that shortly declined after people played the game for a bit, experienced new Pokemon, and then left. Something like this would have been great in the past when Pokémon Go was at the height of its popularity. These updates should have been planned out and maybe released every other month so players would be consistently engaged and so that the game wasn't something people deleted whenever they got bored of it, but instead kept it continually on their phones in the hopes of finding new creatures. What if in August or September of 2016 this Johto update was rolled out and then in a few more months a Gen 3 set of Pokemon were released? I understand playing in the winter might not be ideal, but fuck it, I went out in a penguin suit in the middle of a blizzard, so you know at least one person would be committed to the game in the season, Niantic. Either way, if this strategy was implemented, I'm confident you wouldn't have seen the significant decrease in player activity we saw after the summer of 2016. Would the game still decline in popularity? Of course, there's only so long a game can be interesting for, and since Pokemon Go is so simple, that makes it that much more susceptible to player fatigue. But I don't think the decline would have been so drastic and sudden. Not only that, I think another way Niantic should have improved the game is by adding some new, distinct features. This would counter the inherent tedium I mentioned before. Niantic has done a good job with their Johto update, but as the data shows, it wasn't enough. I mean, there aren't even legendaries to catch yet, so what if Niantic had certain timed events, kind of like in Fire Emblem Heroes, where certain legendary Pokemon like Zapdos, Articuno, Raikou, or Entei were available in specific locations. For these Pokemon, they move around quite a bit in the main series games, which makes capturing them like a hunt of sorts. What if there was an item you could get in Pokemon Go that told you, in real life, where these legendaries would be, and it would be your job to drive there and get them? What if they were timed and made specifically so they would be around somewhere in a certain mile radius for like a couple hours or so? This would really capture the same feeling you get in, say, Pokemon Silver and Gold when you eventually are able to hunt down the 3 legendary dogs. The same goes for the legendary birds. Adding to this, Niantic could put certain unlimited quantities of legendary Pokemon like Lugia, Ho-Oh, Mewtwo, or Mew in some set location around the world, which would incentivize people to go there when they travel or something. What if Lugia was put in like Hawaii to really capture the feeling of going to the Whirl Islands in Pokemon Silver and Gold to find and capture the legendary beast? Or even better, what if Mewtwo was put in Chernobyl? Wait, maybe not. Still, you get my point. Pokemon Go would benefit from changes like these that would add the thrill of catching legendaries to the experience. Another aspect Niantic seems to ignore is the strong community aspect of Pokemon Go. Why not make an update that embraces this? Maybe make something where online play is possible with friends that you can make through some sort of database. I think it would be pretty cool to see a system where friends can use the Pokemon they catch and use them to battle against friends without having to go to a gym or do a raid battle. Those are two things I think are kind of interesting, but what eventually happens is the player that plays the most or cheats the most wins. The winning gym member is not the one with the most skill because battles are automatic, but rather the person with the most HP and the highest CP. I just don't like this sort of design. The main series combat was all about strategy, not mere arbitrary numbers. Niantic already has a good idea in making it so the combat is sort of action-oriented, where you can dodge and choose different attacks depending on how you swiped, but this is made almost pointless by the fact that numbers win every battle. Even raid battles, where multiple Pokemon can be used from other trainers to fight a strong baddie, are dependent on numbers and everything. Of course, I never got to experience the thrill of a multi-person raid battle because, again, it's 2017, but they seem kind of neat for what they set out to do. I just think it would be more interesting if some skill was required, and online battling or tournaments where everyone is equal would be a perfect compromise. You can still keep the gym and raid battle system where numbers win. I understand some might like this, but I think online battling where everyone has equal levels would be super fun. This community edition would go a long way in keeping the game alive. Furthermore, why not go the extra mile and add aspects from the main series, like trading and Pokemon Ami? Playing with the Pokemon you caught could be fun, and helping other players with trading would yet again be another fun way to keep the community support strong. Then again, is Pokemon Go even worth salvaging? At this point, it seems unlikely that the game will ever regain the popularity it once had and the enormous revenue stream it was once creating for Nintendo and Niantic. From a business perspective, is it worth investing a bunch of money into tweaking the game by adding new features on the off chance the game suddenly resurges in player activity and revenue? Or should the companies just let Pokémon Go have a natural death and reap the rewards off of its carcass as it slowly rots away? Both are gambles, but obviously one plays it safe and one takes a risk. I imagine this is the dilemma Niantic has faced before and maybe already solved. We may never know their plans for the future of Pokémon Go. It could already have a sequel or something in development for all we know. One thing's for certain though, it doesn't seem like the Pokémon Go phenomenon will resurface anytime soon. People have moved on from the game to other things, and something huge will eventually come along to rival its success and become another global phenomena. Who knows what the Pokémon company has up its sleeve for the next mobile game project? We could always see a Pokemon MMO in the future or whatever, which would definitely be another gigantic hit, whether that be on the Switch, mobile devices, or PC. As a game by its own merits, and after a year of lackluster updates, Pokemon Go seems to be just scraping by. It's almost sad in a way to see a beloved game be on the verge of death, with just a few players keeping it alive, still having the spirit of catching them all and whatnot. If you're one of these people, that's great. I think it's actually pretty cool that you still play this game consistently even after a year of Niantic seemingly neglecting the project and not adding anything substantial. I mentioned this before, but Pokemon Go's strengths rely heavily on its community, no matter how big or how small, so seeing a small number of players still be active is surprisingly great. Though I don't think I'll be playing Pokemon Go anytime soon unless something big happens. I just don't find any enjoyment out of doing the same task of catching Pokemon in the same way over and over and over. Granted, the app gets me out of the house and active, but I already take walks with my dog and whatnot, so I don't see Pokemon Go as the catalyst of me becoming more active. Nor is Pokemon Go something I want to keep playing and playing. I like filling the Pokédex, but when it requires an abnormal time commitment, potential real-world money, and many kilometers, I don't think it's worth it. Especially since I need to constantly have the app open on my potato of a phone that drains my battery life fairly quick. I guess I could always splurge $40 on a Pokemon Go watch thing that alerts me to Pokemon nearby, but again, why would I when I got bored of the game after 6 hours? I'm thankful for the fun the free game has gotten me in the past, and the short bit I had in 2017, but that's about it. The lack of new, engaging content doesn't make me want to continue my Pokemon journey, so I deleted the app and I probably won't look back. Is it worth your time? Yeah, I'd say so if you haven't tried it out yet and like Pokemon. Is it fun to go back on? For a bit, but not for too long. It's sort of like a nostalgia trip. I don't know why I use nostalgia. The game only came out a year ago, but you won't see me going the extra mile like I did for the game before. Hopefully Niantic will make the game better, but I doubt they will. So while we wait for the next big hit, I'll catch you next time when we tackle Garfield Go. And yes, this is real. Anyways, if you disagree or agree with me, let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for watching and take care. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.